Let me tell you something right now. You can either break in private or be broken in public. You can either bow down willingly or life will bring you down forcefully. Because he who bows before God doesn't fall. He rises from the very place where others thought he was defeated. Oh, they thought it was over. They thought your knees were weak. But when they saw you bow, they didn't know you were tapping into power no man can shut down. Listen, when you bow before the one who holds the keys to life and death, you don't just survive, you overcome. You don't just endure, you conquer. You don't just stand again, you rise with authority. Because the fall at his feet is the foundation of your strength. You see, when people think of bowing, they think of defeat. They see a man on his knees and they assume he's been beaten. They see a woman with her head down and they whisper that she's broken. But what they fail to understand is sometimes the strongest move you can ever make is to bow. Because bowing is not about giving up. Bowing is not weakness, it is alignment. It is putting yourself in position not for pity, but for power. It is the moment where you say, I don't have to be in control because I trust the one who is. And that shift, that one decision can change everything. There are people walking around with their chins up and their hearts heavy. They look bold, but inside they're exhausted. They carry burdens they were never designed to carry. They smile in public and cry in private. And you know why? Because they haven't learned the freedom of bowing. They haven't tasted the peace that comes when your soul finally surrenders, not to people, not to pressure, but to the one who already knows the end from the beginning. Let me talk to someone who's been trying to keep it all together. You've been fighting, you've been striving, you've been grinding yourself down, trying to stay strong for everybody else. But I need you to hear this. You weren't created to carry the weight of the world. You weren't built to hold it all together. That's why your knees are buckling, your heart is trembling, your mind is spinning. That's why you feel like breaking down. And the truth is, you're not supposed to stand in your own strength forever. See, bowing isn't about losing your dignity. It's about finding your real identity. It's when you finally let the walls fall, when you stop pretending to be okay, and you fall into the arms of the one who's been waiting, not to punish you, but to heal you. There's a different kind of strength in submission. Not the submission of the weak, but the submission of the wise. The kind that says, I'd rather bend now than be broken later. The kind that says, I will bow, not because I'm afraid, but because I know where my help comes from. Let me tell you something funny. When I was younger, I used to think bowing made you small. But oh, how wrong I was. The more I bowed, the more I grew. The more I let go, the more I gained. The more I submitted, the more I stood taller. Not in the eyes of men, but in the eyes of heaven. And sometimes you bow with tears streaming down your face, sometimes with anger boiling in your chest, sometimes with laughter because you're finally free. But every time you bow with a sincere heart, something shifts, something changes. Chains fall, burdens lift, peace flows. Because when you bow in alignment, you're no longer moving with your own strength, you're moving with divine backing. You're walking with a fire that doesn't come from motivation videos or hype. You're walking with a fire that comes from the throne. So let the world misinterpret it. Let them talk. Let them laugh. Let them think you're weak when they see you kneeling. Let them think you've lost. They don't know. They don't understand. Because what they see as defeat is really the setup for your rise. You ever notice how the loudest person in the room is often the most insecure? The one who brags the most is usually covering up the most pain. That's the danger of pride. It's a mask. It looks like confidence, but it's really a cover-up. And that's why humility is so misunderstood. Humility doesn't mean you think less of yourself. It means you know exactly who you are, and you know you don't need to prove it to anybody. Because when you walk in true humility, you walk with a power that doesn't have to be loud. Humility, real humility, is not a weakness. It is hidden strength, quiet thunder, calm fire, a force that doesn't need attention but cannot be ignored. And let me tell you, when you tap into that kind of strength, everything changes. You stop reacting to every insult. You stop chasing every spotlight. You stop defending yourself when people lie on you, because you know the truth doesn't need an escort. You're not moved by praise, and you're not broken by criticism. But to get there, oh, it takes some breaking. It takes the kind of breaking that brings tears to your eyes and silence to your soul. It takes losing some things and sometimes losing some people. It takes those moments when life brings you to your knees, not because you chose to bow, but because pride has worn you down to dust. You ever been there? You ever walked into a room full of people pretending to be okay, and you're the only one bold enough to admit you're not? That takes humility, that takes courage. See, we're living in a world that teaches you to flex, to post your wins, to brand your success. But real power is when you can walk past applause without letting it change your identity, and survive criticism without letting it shake your value. I'm not talking about fake humility. I'm not talking about that performative stuff where people act low so they can be praised for being humble. No. I'm talking about the kind of humility that makes you sit in the back even when you could have taken the front. The kind that lets someone else shine when you know you've got the light too. The kind that says, I don't need the credit as long as the work gets done. The kind that stays up all night praying for people who would never even say thank you. And let's be real for a second, humility will cost you. It'll cost you pride, ego, image, sometimes even comfort. But what you gain is so much deeper. You gain peace. You gain clarity. You gain relationships that aren't built on performance but on authenticity. You gain favor that no resume, no connection, no degree can give you. And favor, true favor, is attracted to a humble heart like iron to a magnet. Let me tell you something that might make you laugh, or maybe just make you think. Some of y'all are working 10 times harder than you need to, not because you're lazy, but because pride won't let you ask for help. And help was waiting the whole time. Humility would have opened the door, but pride kept you locked out of your own breakthrough. There is something beautiful, something powerful, something deeply sacred about a heart that knows how to bow low without losing its dignity. A heart that doesn't need to be right, but wants to be righteous. A heart that's more concerned with doing what's good than looking good. And here's the serious truth. Pride comes before the fall, but humility comes before the lift, before the breakthrough, before the favor, before the overflow. If you want elevation without submission, you're asking for destruction. But if you humble yourself, if you come low with a sincere heart, so if you feel like life has been pressing you, pulling things away, shaking your confidence, maybe it's not punishment, maybe it's preparation. Maybe it's the breaking before the blessing. Maybe heaven is stripping the pride so the strength can rise. Because once you taste the power of true humility, you'll never go back to proving yourself again. You'll know who you are, and more importantly, you'll know who holds you. There's something powerful, something almost divine about the moment a person decides to fall. Not because they've lost, not because they've been crushed, but because they've come to understand that the floor is not the end, it's the beginning. See, the floor of submission isn't the place where your story finishes. It's the place where your next chapter begins. It's the foundation of elevation. But it doesn't feel like that at first, does it? No, when you first hit the ground, when life knocks the breath out of you, it doesn't feel holy. It feels humiliating. You feel exposed, vulnerable, defeated. You look around and it seems like everyone else is standing tall, walking proud, and you're down there on your face wondering how it all fell apart. But here's the secret. Not everyone standing is stable. Some of the loudest walkers are walking on fragile ground, and some of the quietest ones, bowed low in silence, are building something that the world can't even see yet. Because down on that floor, something sacred happens. It's not public, it's not celebrated, it's not liked or shared, but it's real, it's raw, it's you stripped of ego, stripped of performance, stripped of titles, influence, applause. It's you and your creator. And in that stillness, in that low place, a miracle begins to form. It's serious down there. Let's not sugarcoat it. The floor hurts. It hurts when pride is peeled away. It hurts when dreams are delayed. It hurts when prayers go unanswered, when silence is all you hear. You cry down there. You scream sometimes. And you wrestle with the pain, the questions, the memories. You wonder if you'll ever get back up again. You wonder if it even matters. But oh, if you only knew what was really happening in that space. See, the ground is where the roots grow. The foundation is laid where no one can see. And God doesn't build skyscrapers on shaky soil. He builds them on ground that's been pressed, shaken, and settled. So while people mock your fall, while they whisper about your struggle, while they walk past you like you're done, He's building quietly, powerfully. And then comes the joy. It doesn't arrive like lightning. It grows slowly, like a flicker at first. You start to breathe again. You feel lighter. You begin to understand that this wasn't the place of your destruction. It was the place of your definition. You begin to smile, not because it's all perfect, but because you're not who you were when you first hit the floor. You're stronger now, wiser now, softer in heart but tougher in spirit. And the people who only saw the fall will never understand the transformation that happened while you were down. But that's okay, because this wasn't about them. This was about you being rebuilt the right way, from the inside out, from the ground up. And you laugh sometimes. Not because everything's funny, but because you remember how low you were, how broken you felt, and now you're walking again. You remember crying and thinking, this is it. And now you're looking back like that was just the beginning. Let me say this loud and clear. The floor of submission is the stage of your elevation. What people thought was your breakdown was actually your breakthrough. And now when you rise, because yes, you will rise. You don't rise the same. You rise rooted. You rise refined. You rise with something they can't take from you. You rise with a story. And not just any story, but one that was written while you were bowed low, while no one saw you, while heaven was working behind the curtain. And when you stand on that stage, whatever stage life gives you, it won't be because you climbed up in your own strength. It will be because you bowed down first and the hand of the Most High lifted you up. So, don't despise the floor. Don't curse the fall. Don't rush the process. Because sometimes the lowest place is the holiest place. And the floor of submission, that's where destiny is born. Elevation doesn't come by accident. It doesn't fall out of the sky. It doesn't show up just because you want it or because you think you deserve it. True elevation, the kind that lasts, the kind that changes your life and the lives of others, comes from the one who sees what's hidden, hears what's unspoken, and knows what nobody else knows. And the one he lifts is not the loudest. not the flashiest, not the most impressive in the world's eyes. The one he elevates is the one who bows before him in secret. And this is where the tension lies, because the world teaches you to climb. Climb for recognition, climb for status, climb so people can see you, follow you, admire you, and people will do just about anything to get to the top. They'll step on others, they'll compromise, they'll wear masks, they'll sacrifice peace for popularity and purpose for applause. But what's the point of getting to the top if your soul is empty when you get there? What's the point of standing on a platform built by pride when the first wind of trouble will blow it all away? See, the way up in this life starts by going down. It's a reversal of the world's logic, because when you bow before the one who sees everything, you stop chasing artificial validation. You don't need people to vote you worthy. You don't need fake likes to confirm real value. You don't need to perform anymore. You just submit. And that submission, done in private, in pain, in silence, is where heaven begins to prepare your promotion. But let's be honest, submission isn't glamorous. It doesn't come with confetti. Nobody claps for you when you choose humility. There's no stage when you decide to surrender. In fact, it's lonely, it's quiet. It's a choice to lay down your will, your plans, your timing, and say, I trust you more than I trust myself. And that takes a strength most people don't even understand. It takes strength to admit you can't do it all. It takes strength to stop trying to control everything. It takes strength to stop chasing what wasn't meant for you and wait for what was. It takes strength to say, I'd rather bow before him now than be forced to fall later. And that kind of strength doesn't look shiny. It doesn't look powerful, but it is. There's something sacred that happens when you live bowed. You become unshakable. Because you're not lifted by height, you're lifted by his hand. And when he lifts you, no man, no enemy, no storm, no scandal can bring you down. When he opens the door, no gatekeeper can close it. When he speaks over you, no lie can override it. But he lifts the humble, not the haughty, not the arrogant, not the ones who take credit for everything and glory in nothing but themselves. Let me say it with some fire in my voice. You don't have to manipulate your way up. You don't have to beg, cheat, fake, or pretend. You don't have to play the game. If you bow before him, if your posture is low, your spirit's soft, your will surrendered, he will raise you in his timing. And when he does, you will not fall, because the ground you're standing on wasn't built on image. It was built on intimacy. And listen, when that elevation comes, it won't feel like what you imagined. It'll feel better. It'll be richer, deeper, more meaningful. Because it won't just be about you. It'll be about your purpose, about your impact, about what you were created for. And all of it started in that moment you chose to bow. So while they chase platforms, keep chasing presence. While they chase status, keep chasing surrender. While they fight to be seen, keep bowing to the one who already sees everything. Because when the time comes and he says it's time to rise, you won't just go up, you'll be planted there, secured, rooted, unmovable. And they'll look at you and ask, how did you get there? And you'll smile, not in arrogance, but in peace, and say, I bowed first. There is something dangerous about depending on yourself too much. Something heavy, something deceptive. Because the world will teach you that you've got to handle it all, that you've got to be strong, got to be sharp, got to be 5 steps ahead of everybody just to survive. They tell you, don't trust nobody, don't lean on anyone, don't show weakness, keep your game face on, push through it. And before you know it, you're carrying loads you were never built to bear. Smiling on the outside, crumbling on the inside, pretending to be fine while you're dying slowly under the pressure of performance. Let me be serious with you. Self-reliance has a limit. It will fail you. You can only hold it together for so long before the cracks start to show. And when those cracks show, when the image you tried to protect starts to collapse, when life hits you with a storm you can't calculate, you're going to break. And not because you're weak, but because you're human. Now let me ask you this. Why would you keep leaning on a source that runs dry? Why would you trust in your own understanding when it's limited, when it's flawed, when it's built on emotion and past pain and ego and pressure? See, there's a reason submission is not just recommended, it's required. Because when you submit, you're not giving up, you're giving over. You're releasing control to the one who already has the plan written. You're saying, I don't know what's around the corner, but I trust the one who sees the whole street. You're saying this is bigger than me, but it's not bigger than him. Some of y'all are losing sleep trying to control things that were never yours to fix. You're praying with your mouth, but panicking in your heart. You're saying, I trust, but then grabbing the wheel as soon as it starts turning a direction you didn't expect. And let's be honest, it's exhausting. You weren't made to be your own savior. And let me talk to the perfectionists, the planners, the ones who always need to know what's next. I know what it feels like to want control. I know what it feels like to be terrified of uncertainty. But there's a freedom that comes when you finally say, I don't have to know, I just have to trust. And that kind of trust, that kind of surrender, it's not weak, it's warfare. It's you choosing faith over fear. It's you choosing peace over panic. It's you putting the weight back where it belongs, not on your shoulders, but in his hands. Now, don't get it twisted. Submission doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. It means you do everything you're called to do and then you let go of the outcome. You move with obedience, not obsession. You walk in confidence, not in control. You plant the seed and leave the harvest to him. And when you do that, when you truly surrender, when you stop micromanaging your life and start submitting your life, you'll feel something shift. You'll start to breathe again. You'll laugh again. You'll cry, yes, but those tears won't be from frustration. They'll be from freedom. Because that weight you've been carrying, that pressure to be perfect, that fear of failing, it'll start to lift, and in its place comes peace. The kind of peace that doesn't make sense. The kind that steadies you in the middle of a storm. The kind that keeps you anchored when everything around you is shaking. And people will look at you and say, why aren't you losing your mind? And you'll look back and say, because I'm not holding my life in my own hands anymore. I gave it to the one who never drops what he carries. So stop relying on your own strength. Stop trying to be everything for everyone. Stop pretending that you've got it all together. Because the moment you lay it down, the moment you bow your heart and say, not my will, is the moment you tap into a strength that will never run dry. That is the paradox of submission. It looks like surrender, but it leads to supernatural stability. You lose control, but you gain clarity. You lose your grip, but you gain grace. And in that space, in that place where you stop relying on yourself and start relying fully on him, you don't just survive, you soar. There is a sacred kind of power that begins to rise when a person truly bows, not in pretense, not in performance, but in complete surrender. When the knees hit the ground and the pride breaks off, something awakens that can't be bought, taught, or faked. That's when true strength is born. Not the kind of strength that puffs out its chest and roars for attention, but the kind of strength that knows when to be still. The kind that survives storms in silence. The kind that walks with fire in the heart and peace on the face. See, the world doesn't understand that. It doesn't make sense to them because in their eyes, power comes from position. It comes from platforms, paychecks, popularity. They think strength is all about being louder, tougher, more dominant. But that's not power. That's noise. That's the kind of strength that crumbles when the pressure gets real. That's the kind of confidence that falls apart when nobody's clapping. But the power that comes from bowing low before the Creator, that is a strength forged in fire, refined in trials, and anchored in truth. There is nothing weak about submission. There is nothing passive about bowing. It takes more courage to lay your will down than it does to fight for control. It takes more boldness to surrender your plans than to chase after your ambitions blindly. And in that act of surrender, when your soul says, I trust you no matter what, that's when power enters. Not power to dominate, but power to endure, power to lead with grace, power to love when it hurts, power to be still when everything in you wants to panic. Let's talk about that power, that quiet, fire-trusted, spirit-filled power. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't need to prove itself. It's the power that walks into a room and shifts the atmosphere without saying a word. It's the power that stands back up after being knocked down, not once, not twice, but over and over again. It's the kind of power that doesn't get bitter. It gets better. The kind that doesn't seek revenge, it seeks wisdom. The kind that refuses to let pain rewrite the purpose. And hear me on this. It's not a power that just appears in comfort. No, this kind of strength is forged in the low places. It's born in the nights when no one sees your tears, in the moments when you feel forgotten, overlooked, underestimated. It grows in the silence, in the struggle, in the dark. And while the world is busy chasing spotlights, the one who bows is being transformed. That's why people can't understand how you're still standing. That's why they don't get why you haven't lost your mind after all you've been through. It's because they didn't see what happened when you bowed. They didn't see the transaction that took place when you said, here, take it all. I don't want the weight anymore. They didn't see the invisible exchange. When weakness was traded for strength, when weakness was traded for strength, when fear was swallowed up by faith. And let me say something to those who are in the thick of it right now. If you feel weak, if you feel like you're drowning, like you've been overlooked, like the struggle is never ending, you are not finished. You are being filled, refined, strengthened. You are being prepared for something greater than you can imagine. But the preparation doesn't happen standing tall. It happens while you bowed low. You don't get real power by skipping submission. You don't get lasting strength without breaking. You can't carry the crown if you never carried the cross. So if you're wondering where the power is, if you're asking why things haven't shifted, maybe it's not about climbing higher, it's about bowing deeper. Because when you bow low, you rise differently. You rise with compassion. You rise with clarity. You rise with conviction. You rise with real power. The kind that can't be shaken, the kind that doesn't need applause, the kind that stands firm when the winds blow, when the pressure mounts, when the world is watching and waiting for you to fall. But you won't fall because you already bow. And the one who bows cannot be broken. They've already been remade. Sometimes we forget that this life is a battlefield. Not just the kind you can see with your eyes, but one that rages deep inside your soul, the kind of war that doesn't leave scars on your skin, but wounds in your spirit. And in this war, the greatest enemy you'll ever face is not always on the outside. It's not the critic. It's not the doubter. It's not the hater. No, the greatest enemy most of us battle is the one that whispers from within. That voice that tells you, you're not enough. You'll never be more. You can't get through this. Just give up. It's in that quiet, painful space that the fight for your soul takes place. And it's not just a fight for your sanity. It's a fight for your purpose, your destiny, your peace. But here's the truth. You cannot win a spiritual war with fleshly weapons. You can't fight inner battles by shouting louder, working harder, or pretending stronger. At some point, if you want to win this war, you're going to have to drop to your knees and let go of the illusion that you can do it by yourself. There is a kind of victory that only comes through surrender, not through striving, not through flexing. but through bowing. And I don't mean the kind of bowing that looks good to people, the kind where your mouth says one thing, but your heart is still in control. I mean the kind of surrender that breaks you, the kind that cracks the armor you've been hiding behind, the kind that says, I can't do this without you. I've tried, and I'm tired, I'm worn, I'm weak. That's when you're finally ready for real victory. Because the fight isn't just about external battles, it's about the war that tries to pull you away from your Creator. It's the pull to believe lies over truth, to chase distractions instead of discipline, to bow to pressure instead of power. And every day that war is waging, every single day. But the one who learns how to fight from their knees, who learns how to anchor their soul through surrender, that one becomes dangerous. Let me tell you why. Because the one who fights on their knees cannot be disarmed. They're not swinging wild in the dark. They're locked in with truth. They're grounded. They're not moved by emotion because they're held by conviction. They're not looking for applause because they've already been approved. They're not trying to prove their worth, they're walking in it. And that kind of strength, that kind of clarity, that kind of resilience, it comes from intimacy, not effort. You want to silence the voice of fear? Bow. You want to break the chains of insecurity? Bow. You want to destroy the lies that have followed you your whole life, the ones that were spoken over you in anger, in pain, in ignorance? Then bow. Because there's something about that posture that shakes the unseen realm. It tells every dark force, every doubt, every lie, I'm not fighting this alone. I've got backup. I've got fire, I've got covering. And maybe people laugh when you bow. Maybe they don't understand it. Maybe they call it weakness, religion, desperation. Let them talk, let them mock. Because they don't understand that the one who bows walks away with more power than the one who stands proud. They don't see the angels that encamp around those who submit. They don't hear the peace that drowns out the noise. They don't feel the weight lifting, the chains breaking, the lies being silenced when you say, enough. I'm not fighting this in my strength anymore. And can I tell you something raw? Some of the most powerful people you'll ever meet are the ones who've been to hell and back, not with clenched fists, but with bowed hearts. They fought not with anger, but with surrender. They endured not because they were strong, but because they knew where their strength came from. And when the smoke cleared, when the dust settled, they were still standing. Not because they never bled, but because they bowed before the one who can never be defeated. So if you're in a war right now, internally, emotionally, mentally, don't you dare try to fight it with shallow strength. Don't dress it up and pretend it's not there. Don't act like you're fine when your soul is screaming. Stop performing, stop hiding, just bow. Bow in the secret place. Bow when nobody's watching. Bow when it hurts. Bow when you don't understand. Bow when the fear is louder than your faith. And watch what happens. Because when you bow before the Most High, you don't just gain perspective, you gain power. You don't just find comfort, you find command. And what once had power over you, fear, shame, guilt, depression, starts to lose its grip. Not because the war is easy, but because now you're not fighting it alone. There comes a moment in every soul's journey where the crowd disappears, where the noise dies down, and you're left with nothing but the raw echo of who you really are. That moment, oh, that moment is sacred, because it's in that stillness, in that silence, where you either bow or you break. You either fall into surrender or you collapse under the weight of pretending. You can't outrun that moment forever. You can't keep covering it up with distractions, entertainment, status, and ego. Eventually the lights go out, the applause stops, and you have to face yourself. Face your choices, face your wounds, face your soul. And in that sacred space, when all else falls away, the question that rises is not how successful are you or how strong do you look. The question is, have you bowed? Because bowing isn't a public display, it's a private decision. It's not about impressing people with how spiritual you look. It's about making peace with your Creator behind closed doors in the unseen when nobody's watching. And let me tell you, those are the moments that shape destiny. Some people spend their whole lives trying to build towers of their own greatness, chasing titles, chasing fame, chasing validation. They climb and climb thinking the higher they get, the more they'll be worth. But what they don't realize is that a tower built without surrender is a tower built on sand. And one storm, just one real hit from life, will bring it all crashing down. It's heartbreaking to watch, isn't it? People who look so strong, so accomplished, yet you see the cracks in their spirit. You feel the emptiness behind their smiles. They're worn out, burnt out on the edge because they've been running on the fumes of performance instead of the fire of purpose. And the saddest part, they don't even realize that what they're missing isn't more hustle, it's humility. When you bow, truly bow, you begin to walk in a completely different posture. You're not shaken by every opinion because you're anchored in truth. You're not addicted to applause because you've already heard the only affirmation that matters. You're not grasping for control because you've released your plans into the hands of the one who sees the end from the beginning. And that freedom is beautiful. It's powerful, it's liberating, but getting there, that's not always pretty. That kind of surrender will break you before it builds you. It will strip away everything you thought you needed to survive. It will expose your idols. It will uncover the lies you've told yourself. It will bring you face to face with your pride, your fear, your wounds. It's not soft, it's not glamorous, but it's real. And it's worth it. Because what's the alternative? To keep fighting against the very one who's trying to heal you? To keep carrying weights you were never meant to live? To keep pretending you're fine while your soul is screaming for rest? No, my friend, there is no strength in denial. But there is unimaginable strength in surrender. And when you finally bow, not just your knees, but your will, your heart, your desires, that's when you become dangerous. That's when peace floods your soul like a river. That's when clarity silences confusion. That's when identity is no longer rooted in what you do, but in who you are. And that right there is when your life begins to move with power and purpose, not because you've mastered control, but because you've mastered release. So let the world chase chaos. Let them strive and climb and boast. You bow. You live from the inside out. You walk with a quiet kind of fire, the kind that doesn't flicker in the face of storms, the kind that's been lit by heaven itself. Because those who bow in the quiet, who surrender in the secret place, those are the ones who rise in strength when others fall. Those are the ones who carry peace into war. Those are the ones who shine in the dark, not because they are perfect, but because they've been purified. And you can't fake that kind of light. You can't manufacture that kind of peace. You can't pretend your way into that kind of purpose. It only comes when you bow low. There's a point in life where the fight becomes too heavy to carry in your own hands, where your strategies stop working, your connections can't save you, and your confidence starts to crack. That's when the illusion of control begins to fade. That's when life strips you bare and reminds you, you're not in charge here. And in that moment, you have a choice. Keep pretending you're strong or bow and receive real strength. You see, the world applauds self-sufficiency. It tells you to grind harder, push through, handle it alone. Don't cry, don't break, don't show weakness. But what it doesn't tell you is that kind of pressure will slowly crush your soul. It'll drain the joy out of your laughter and turn your ambition into anxiety. Because when you try to carry the weight of your world without surrendering to the one who created it, you don't become stronger, you become weaker with a smile on your face. Some people are walking around looking like they've got it all together, dressed sharp, speaking confidently, moving fast, but deep inside they're barely hanging on. They're exhausted, angry, numb, and you know why? Because they've never learned the strength that comes from surrender. They've never known the power that shows up after you bow. Let me tell you something raw. The one who refuses to bow will eventually break in a way that's far more painful than surrender. Pride will wear you down. Control will stretch you thin. And the longer you resist bowing, the longer you delay peace. And when you finally fall, not gently, but hard, you'll realize what surrender could have saved you from. There's no shame in surrender. There's no shame in saying, I can't do this on my own. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And all the peace that floods your soul when you finally stop trying to be your own savior, the relief, the tears that fall not from pain but from release, that moment when you lift your hands not in frustration but in freedom, that's when the fight shifts. That's when you stop battling for control and start walking in purpose. I need you to understand, surrender doesn't mean you stop moving forward. It means now you're being led. You're not guessing anymore. You're not chasing dead ends. You're not trying to figure it all out by yourself. You're following the one who already knows the way. That's where clarity comes from. That's where peace comes from. That's where strength is found, in the posture of the one who's bowed low but stands tall in purpose. And don't be fooled. Surrender isn't just a one-time act. It's a daily decision. It's a moment-by-moment reminder, not my will, but yours. That's not easy. That's not always comfortable. Sometimes it feels like loss, like letting go of dreams you held on to for years, like walking away from something you thought you needed, like trusting when nothing makes sense. But that kind of surrender births unshakable faith. The kind that doesn't flinch when the storms hit. The kind that doesn't panic when doors close. The kind that says, even here, even now, I trust. That trust, it doesn't grow in the easy seasons. It's built in the fire, in the waiting, in the breaking, in the silence. And every time you choose to bow instead of break, every time you choose trust over control, you're becoming unbreakable. Not because you're perfect, not because life is smooth, but because you're anchored. And let me say this to the one who's tired right now, to the one who's been fighting battles nobody sees, carrying burdens nobody understands. Your surrender is not the end. It's the beginning. The beginning of peace, the beginning of clarity, the beginning of healing, the beginning of power that doesn't come from performance, but from presence. From the one who sees you, knows you. So stop trying to hold it all together. Stop trying to prove you're enough. Stop fighting battles that were never yours to begin with. Bow. Let go. Surrender. And watch what happens when you finally step out of your own way. What you thought was the end might just be the doorway to your next level of strength, your next chapter of purpose, your next season of peace. Because the one who bows doesn't lose, they rise. Not on their own, not for applause, but in alignment, in power, in truth. And that kind of rising can never be taken away. When you bow before God, something shifts in the atmosphere of your own heart. It's not a simple gesture, not a quick bow that you might give in a formal setting. No, this is something deeper, more profound. It's a bow of surrender. A bow of submission to the one who holds the very universe in his hands. And when you bow, you're not just submitting yourself to a higher power. You're accepting the truth that you were never meant to carry the weight of this world alone. You were never meant to fight this battle on your own strength. There is a kind of power that only comes when you are broken enough to admit, I cannot do this. I need you. This bowing, this act of laying down your pride, your plans, your heart, it's not easy. It's humbling. It's terrifying in a way. Because when you bow, you're acknowledging that you don't have it all figured out. You're admitting that you can't solve every problem, you can't answer every question, you can't heal every wound, and for many, that's a struggle. We've been taught to be self-sufficient, to rely on our own abilities, to keep our heads high, to never show weakness. But the truth is, it is in your weakness that you will find the greatest strength. It is in the moment of surrender that the power of the Almighty will lift you higher than you could ever rise on your own. There's a profound beauty in letting go of control. Oh, I know it feels like you're losing something. In the world's eyes, it might look like you're falling, like you're giving up. But in the eyes of the divine, when you bow, you rise. You rise with a strength that is not your own, a strength that can never be taken away, a power that's rooted in peace and grace, not in ego or effort. The moment you bow, it's as though the very heavens open and a flood of peace rushes in to fill the empty spaces you've been trying so hard to fill on your own. And it's not just a fleeting peace. It's a peace that surpasses understanding. A peace that doesn't make sense when the storms are raging and everything around you is falling apart. It's the peace that comes from knowing that you are not alone. The bowing doesn't just bring humility, it brings connection. The connection to the one who has never left your side, the one who has seen your struggle, your pain, your tears, and still holds you in his arms. But here's the thing, bowing doesn't mean you're weak. Bowing doesn't mean you're defeated. Bow before God, and you will see the power to rise. It's a rise not in your own strength, but in His. It's a rise that doesn't depend on the approval of others or the applause of the crowd, but on the eternal love and acceptance of the Creator. And when you rise from that kind of bow, nothing in this world can shake you. You've been through the fire, you've been through the breaking, and you've learned that the only thing that matters is what you've surrendered to. When you bow, you are acknowledging that the battles you face are not yours to fight alone. You're acknowledging that everything you are, your hopes, your dreams, your fears, your scars, are in the hands of a God who is bigger than every challenge you will ever face. And that, my friend, is liberating. Because the moment you release everything into His hands, the weight of the world is no longer yours to carry. You no longer have to figure it all out. You no longer have to carry the burden of your past mistakes, your regrets, your brokenness. When you bow, you're releasing all of it. It's an act of faith, an act that says, I trust you with my future. I trust you with my pain. I trust you with my heart, with my life. And when you trust like that, when you bow in that kind of faith, you unlock doors you never thought were possible. You don't just receive peace, you receive power. The power to stand in the face of trials and smile. The power to move forward even when the world says you should quit. The power to love when others have only hurt you. The power to rise above circumstances and to live with joy even when things aren't perfect. And let me tell you this, the bow is not just a one-time event. It's a daily practice, a daily decision to surrender, because life with all its trials and challenges will keep coming at you. Will keep pushing you to fight, to struggle, to do it all yourself. But every day you have the choice. You can bow, you can surrender your worries, your fears, your insecurities. You can hand them over and trust that the one who holds the universe is holding you too. And every day as you make that choice, you will rise with more strength, more peace, more clarity, and more power than you had the day before. In that bowing, you will find freedom. Freedom from the chains of anxiety. Freedom from the heavy load of guilt. Freedom from the suffocating grip of fear. And you will rise, not just in body, but in spirit, in heart, in soul. You will rise with purpose, with confidence, knowing that you are covered. You will rise with a fire that can't be extinguished by life's challenges. You will rise because you have been held by the hands of the Almighty, and there is nothing stronger than that. So if you're tired, if you're weary, if you feel like you've been fighting alone for too long, bow. Release it all. Let go of the need to control. Let go of the weight you were never meant to carry. Bow in surrender and watch how you rise. Stronger, freer, more alive than you ever thought possible.